So if you use like Google PageSpeed, the Google PageSpeed, you can Google it, tool, and you measure the speed of your website. What is that? If you're in your 20s or 30s, that's your score. That's not good. Like their competitors, they would measure their competitors. I remember him showing me their competitors, and I think their competitors were like in the 50s, right? But they were in like the upper 20s, I think, low 30s maybe, and they just wanted to be at least as good as their competitors. Well, we got them in, now they're in the 80s. But that took a long time. We had to rebuild their theme over time, and we had to, and just get better at figuring out how to do that. But we've now done that. And that's kind of one of our things that, it comes with maintenance, but it's one of the things we've become really good at through repetition and knowing what tools to use and how to make that happen. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable From the Trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to another The Builders, another solo episode with yours truly, Matt Levenhagen. Today we are going to talk about finding your lane. Finding your thing, wheelhouse, whatever you want to call it, your specialization in your business, in your agency, or whatever type of business you're in, knowing what that is. So sometimes it's obvious, right? You do a specific thing, and out of the gates, you know what your specialization is, and it's probably in your name, right? But some of us work in situations where I do kind of have more of a broad, undefined thing. Like we can say, we're going to start an agency. Well, what's your agency do? What do you how are you differentiating yourself? Like what is special about you rather than your competition or others out there? And that's what we're going to kind of dig into here today. And as we do on this podcast, I'm going to share kind of a brief story that kind of was the inspiration for this. And that's what I love to do. As you may know, if you're a regular listener, I like to just kind of pull and extract things from my dailies, the things I do daily in my business or weekly. At a recent episode, it was like the whole episode was multiple things, but it all came from like the past week. But there's lessons in everything. Maybe that's my talent, is I'm able to like see something and be like, and ask, what's the lesson? There's a lot of examples of that, right? Every day. Like something that happened recently. It wasn't a good thing. Something in our day-to-day, we're a web design and development agency, and if something happened on a website, the client was fine. Everything was fine. It wasn't a huge impact, but it's something that could have been bad. And I traced back to why it happened. And then I had a conversation with members of our team. And I looked at it and I said this to my client as well. I said, after apologizing that this happened, it was an innocent thing. And I said, well, what we will do, though, is we will turn this into a lesson. This is something that happened. We're not going to point fingers or blame anybody because there's a whole process here that there's some things that failed within our process, and we're going to mend those things. It's a rare occurrence. In fact, it's never happened in the 5.5 years. This is very, new things happen. It was just very specific, and it was something that did open a conversation, and that's what it's all about, So I digress a little. But there's a lot of things that can happen in a business, and that's what I like to do. I like to pull those lessons, and let's just dive into it before I talk all day and never get to the meat of this. So today we're going to have a conversation about, like I said, about specializing, finding your thing, your lane. I work with other agencies and other businesses that have their lane. They have their thing that they do that they're really good at, they become experts at, or they're just passionate about, or they're just good at, right? There's, I look at, I'm thinking of a bunch of them as I'm talking here. But it's that thing. It's like, what makes you unique? What can you get excited about? It's about the money too, right? But I believe the money follows this. So when I got into web design and development, I didn't, even though I kind of refer to us as a full service web design and development agency, and we can do almost anything, right? If we put our minds to it and put the right team together. But we still specialize. We still have our thing. And there's also guardrails. Like, we don't go outside of these type of services. We don't bleed into being a digital marketing agency. We don't bleed into becoming, photographers and videographers. We may partner with those people, or we may work with companies that have those people or copywriters or whatever. And, but at our core, we know what we do and don't do. And it's even on the level of just specific things, like specific things that happen. And I'm going to talk a little bit about one specific thing that came from a conversation. So we're technically what you might call onboarding a digital marketing agency, or an agency. I guess they're a full service agency. They're a larger agency. They're a pretty big agency. And how many times can I say agency in 2 seconds? But they have a backlog of web development tasks, specifically around WordPress. They got lots and lots of websites, lots of clients, and but they want to focus on certain things in their agency. They have this backlog of things, and what happens is, and this is kind of, if you're in business, you understand this. Like, you want to do like the the new stuff. You want to go out and get more business, build new things. But what happens, there's a lot of technical debt and things that can kind of accumulate over time. And you got this backlog of things that don't really make you money. But somebody's got to do it, because eventually that's going to bite you. So this one is around CRO, conversion rate optimization. CRO. There's experts out there. That's all they do. They look at a website. Somebody brings them in, like a website owner or a company, whatever, brings them in, right? Please look at our website. We want more conversions. What can we do to improve those conversions? That conversation may turn into a bunch of things. It could turn into a report of things to update on the site. Sometimes it's obvious things. Or it could be more analytical, getting into the data and figuring out, or split testing and doing all kinds of things, right? Conversion rate optimization, putting in the processes or making the changes. And so I'm going to get into that because somebody asked, do we do CRO audits? Do we? So I will let you know shortly. So kind of back to kind of using my agency as an example, we have defined that, and it's come into play many times over the years. Like, what do you do? Well, we do web design and development. That is literally our specialty. Now we do front end, we do back end, we do all the technical stuff. We have definitions within that, right? We have maintenance, which we specialize in. Like, we're really good, especially with WordPress maintenance, but others like Shopify or whatever. But we have a very specific maintenance process in place that adapts to different agencies or companies. Every company, agency, there's different people. They have their own processes. They have their own way they want to do things. There's a lot of room in budgets, and there's little room in budgets to do. So we have to adapt. But that is something that we specialize in, custom work. And that's just like custom features, custom functionality, integrations. And that could be front end, that could be back end. In other words, it could be what you see in the front of the site and the user experience there, or it could be the back end systems, the more technical logic and all that stuff going on back there. It could be, e-commerce. It could be, different things we do, but really that's it though, right? And we do that for companies and we do that for agencies, partnering with them, and we fill in gaps, right? So some agencies, we do the back end work. We're the guys, we're the technical. There's literally like two I'm thinking of, like that are probably the extreme examples. We have one agency where we do a lot for them. We're doing the technical stuff though. We're building the back end stuff. They have their front end team, so they just bring us in to create logic, build tools, build user interfaces and different things that are a little more complex and not out of the box, or can't be done with a website builder or something. That's what we're there for. There's another example where it's actually a digital marketing company where we are the front end. They have the master back end PHP guy that who's Zen certified, like the guru of all gurus, and plus a great team that also has got a lot of experience, and they do really, really technical things. But we come in, I have a dedicated resource that helps them build funnels and landing pages and interfaces, but the front end of it, a little bit of it, we're kind of dipping into the back end a little bit, but we work with the back end team. But those are the examples. So we know this is what we do, and this is how we slot in and help others. And there's a lot of reasons you want to do that. I mean, you kind of build your core strengths, right? You become good at this thing. And it is not even just the technical stuff. Like, we've become good at talking to like the agency I was talking about, or will be talking about regarding the CRO audits. We're having conversations that's not just technical. Even though the conversation we had the other day was like, yeah, this person was sort of new, not that new, probably almost a year with this company or in this position. But I just, made her feel better because I said, this is what we do. Like, especially in the WordPress realm, we know WordPress inside and out. We've done everything, right? We do the back end, front end, even server stuff. That's usually where I come in these days. But DNS and all that really technical stuff. For some reason, Matt does that stuff. But we have you covered because we understand how to build things custom and make things happen. We know how to maintain sites and do all that. So if you have a question, you can come to us and we can advise you based on our experience. So, but we have that core experience, but it's also outside of that, right? It's also, we have to figure out how we're going to communicate. We're having conversations about which project management system we're going to use. Or are we going to be added to your project management system? In this case, we already have Slack set up in like a shared channel. So we've been sort of figuring that out too, along with that, because that's really important too. There's, it's building, like I talk about a lot, building relationships. Communication is part of that as well. But we have within that, so that kind of becomes kind of our core strength, because it's repetition. We've done it. We've been there, done that. There's only so many ways you can bake a cake or something. I'm looking for an analogy on the fly. We'll just go with that. Bake a cake. There's only so many ways, right? But that allows you to get better and better and better over time. You hone those skills. You have different scenarios, all the different challenges. You solving things as you go, and you get better and better and better. The other important part of this is you have to, I think so. If you're figuring it out, if you're not sure, like we could do all these things. The other thing I think is important too is the kind of the passion that you have for something. That has to become a great company. If you've ever read some books out there that talk about, good to greats and things like that, you become a great company and just and to do well in general, you have to enjoy going to work and doing this thing. I mean, I suppose there's a time frame that you could do something you hate for a while, but why do you want to do that, right? First of all, but also if you're passionate about it, you're going to get better at it. You're just going to be better at it. Yeah, there's a book called Good to Great out there. Check it out. I'm sure many of you have heard of that. I read that recently for the first time. I'm actually working on their other book now because I was trying to figure out the order. They have multiple books, but I'm actually listening to because I don't know if you can see that or not if you're on video, but Built to Last. Built to Last is the one I am working on now. I don't know if that's going to work. There we go. That is the one I'm working on now, but the one I just read, and this is by Jim Collins. Actually, there's another author, Jim Collins and somebody else. Who's the other author? I thought there was two authors to that one. Anyway, the one I just finished is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And it talks a lot about how to become a great company. And I really, I think he's posed the question a couple times, like, why wouldn't you want to be a great company? In fact, I think at the end of the last book, or the Good to Great, he's like, it's actually easier to become a great company. It's actually the easy path. It should be. But part of that is choosing something that you are passionate about, that you care about. And I think if you're going to think about, specialization and doing something great in the world, passion is it. And for me, and as using myself as an example, because we tell stories here, my story is I love web design and development. I love all of it that we do. I'm sure there's something in there that I hate, but probably avoid it or give it to somebody else. But I made a pivot back in 2012. I did internet marketing for like a decade online, affiliate marketing, and I was a paid a search marketer and all that. But I made a pivot in 2012, and the reason I decided to go down this path and what I do today is because I realized I really, and I would note this over those years. I'm like, I would spend hours just tinkering with the website, building landing pages and doing all that. And I actually enjoyed it more than the actual marketing and advertising I was doing and trying to make money with that page. I would rather just get kind of lost in designing these forum areas or membership areas. And that I actually enjoyed building it. It was great. I mean, after you build it, you make money and do your thing, you get members in there and they're paid customers and all that good stuff. That's great. That's why you build it. But the building was fun. I enjoyed it. So that's why I'm like, well, what if I did that for others? I've learned all this stuff. I enjoy doing it. Let's do it for others. And build a team, obviously, to do it for others. But that is why I'm probably still doing it 12 plus years later, because I had a passion for something and that became part of what we do. Let's get back to benefits of specializing, right? You are able to build more expertise and quality around what you do because that's what you're focused on. You got the passion, you're excited about it, but also if you're building a team like I have, and many people do, you find experts that are really good and passionate about that too, right? My team members are all passionate about what they do. They love doing what they do. And that's important to me. If I hire somebody, I want them to love what they do and like this is their thing, but because of that, they're going to be more apt to want to learn and get better and build more quality things and care about the results of their work. But because you have that and you keep focusing, again, the repetition, right? The more we build WooCommerce e-commerce sites, the more we do that, the more we customize that sales page, the product details page. Let's say WooCommerce. Okay, so WooCommerce out of the box, it's a WordPress plugin where it allows you to build a store. And that store has your your common things, right? You have the list page with all your products, and then you have a product details page, and then you have your checkout and all that. That product details page, there's an out of the box layout for that. So, I mean, you can plug and play with WooCommerce. You could plug it in and whatever it looks like, you can take orders and do your thing. But a lot of people, a lot of clients and businesses, they need specific things on that page. They want to customize it. They want to move things around. They want to tuck things in and in wide range of ways, and add new sections below, and then we want to make it so they can manage that, or we can manage it. But that takes a specific expertise. Right? You got to know how do you modify that template, because it's a template. And and over time, we've done this. We've been modifying product details pages for years, so we're pretty good at it. And so now when somebody says we want a button in a certain place, or like a recent one we just did, hey, we want this button to stick to the bottom when they scroll. When they scroll past the cart, they want to add to cart, sticky to the bottom now. So it stays with them, that call to action, add to cart. And we figured out how to do that. Right? So now, the next time somebody wants that feature, we can do it. And there's even more complex things. But because we do that, and because of the repetition, we get better and better, and we become better experts at it. Because we're specialized. We do a lot of WooCommerce. and not just doing WooCommerce, customizing it. And so we become better at that. We also get to know all the tools out there and all the trends and things people are doing with these solutions. And when somebody asks us, what's your recommended security plugin, and how do you improve performance? One of the things we've gotten really good at is speeding up WordPress sites, because that's been really important to a lot of our clients is they need their website to be fast. And when you're on WordPress out of the box and you're using a lot of plugins, and it may be kind of slow. We've taken websites that have been in the 20 now. So if you use like Google PageSpeed, the Google PageSpeed, you can Google it, tool, and you measure the speed of your website. What is that? If you're in your 20s or 30s, that's your score. That's not good. We've taken both the mobile and the desktop side. Desktop's easier. Mobile's harder. But even mobile, we've taken from the 20s, 30s into the 80s, and yeah, it's not hard to get desktop into the 90s or upper 90s. But we've figured out how to do that, what tools, what plugins to use, and how to construct a website that's going to be speedy in the get-go. We have a client that we already had managed multiple sites, but it took us literally years to get them out of the dark place they were in with their theme and their speed. And this is one of the examples where had really, like, their competitors, they would measure their competitors. I remember him showing me their competitors, and I think their competitors were like in the 50s, right? But they were in like the upper 20s, I think, low 30s maybe, and they just wanted to be at least as good as their competitors. Well, we got them in, now they're in the 80s. But that took a long time. We had to rebuild their theme over time, and we had to, and just get better at figuring out how to do that. So now, but we've now done that. And that's kind of one of our things that, it comes with maintenance, but it's one of the things we've become really good at through repetition and knowing what tools to use and how to make that happen. You become more efficient and productive over time because you're honing your processes and how you attack a particular project. If you're specialized, if you've done that same thing, even if it's different, like I said, we do a lot of things, and we run into new things, new APIs to learn, new things to do. But we have a process. Even the learning becomes a process. Okay, we've identified this thing. This is the next thing we need to do. We need to estimate, scope this out, learn a little bit about what they're doing. There's only so many ways, just like membership sites. There's only so many ways a membership plugin is going to build things, right? There's certain components that are common to every single membership site. From your members areas, how your courses and lessons are built and design and how the UI looks. There's variations on that, but overall, the pieces are all there. So you become better at that over time. So you become more efficient. Your process become more streamlined. You get even your team over time. Certain team members have been worked. Like when I get a project, I'm not just going to give that to anybody on my team. I'm going to look at, so I have multiple developers, like who's got the most experience with this, or who is really good at this type of thing, or who has done this before. Oh, we've done a bunch of these. That developer has. That developer is going to get this because they're going to keep doing, I want to keep them doing that thing because they become better at it, more efficient at it. I had to, in WordPress land, we have this thing called full site editing themes and blocks. Blocks specifically, we have a blocks plugin. Well, I had somebody build the blocks plugin, but it's very different from normal WordPress plugin development. It's a whole thing. I won't go into the technical, but it's a whole thing. It's a very different way to develop things. And so I had somebody build it, but then I didn't really have anybody else in the team that could work with that and build it. So I had to choose somebody, learn how to do this. Now that she's done it, if we would get a project that's related to that, or we build more plugins or whatever, or we work on that plugin, she's my go-to now, right? That's what you need to do. And you become better. Your team becomes better because you all begin, even within a team, you have specialists in certain areas that are good at different things. That's why when I talk to this agency I'm talking about today, the CRO thing, which I will get to, even her, I had this conversation where I said, it's going to be beneficial. Like in the beginning, we'll just kind of, there's going to be so many different things we're doing for them. but what over time, I will eventually have a dedicated resource that just gets really good at their projects and their processes, and that, gets familiar with all the websites we're helping with them. And I want, it's really important for me to eventually have, even building a small team around that, of people that those are the go-to for those projects. And that because they're going to become more efficient and stuff. Over time, even going beyond like the content we create on social media or the blog posts I write and the brand we're building, the brand reputation and the trust around these things, if you're specializing, you're relatively narrow in certain things, that's going to also be helpful because that specialization helps you do that. So I have kind of a personal brand side of my stuff, mattlevenhagen.com. There's a lead magnet on that homepage regarding outsourcing. I know a lot about outsourcing, but I know the best way to do that and how we do it. It was not. I say it's the best, but I'm biased. But it's about building relationships. It's about communication and how to do that, approach that. That is part of our brand. That bleeds into, if you go to my agency site, we say, we're talking about building relationships, doing better together, doing things together. And so that all becomes part of that brand, but it's also, we're talking a lot about WordPress. We're talking a lot about the things we do, maintenance, and we don't have to guess. We don't have to be all over the place. We're not talking about, there's a lot. I mean, web development, there's so much, there's so much out there. It's impossible to even learn it all. But I mean, even within just even a programming language, there's a ton to learn and not everybody's an expert on. So imagine the whole ecosystem. Well, we're specializing. We're building a brand that's focused on these topics, these things, and having a specialty, having something that your wheelhouse is going to make it easier to create that content, and that's just going to magnify, and get that attention that you want. Everything's going to benefit everything. It's going to benefit how you allocate resources. Touched on that a little bit. Your clients are going to be happier because they're dealing with experts. We still learn. We're always learning from our clients, but they give you an example. So I had, we just launched a website for somebody, and then we did like this after the launch. We did kind of like a, by the client request, kind of a CRO related update of the site. We improved the CTAs, call to actions, buttons, change button colors. Just really made it to where you go to this website now, you know what your next action is. Doesn't matter where you are, you will know what your next action is. Actually, that had something to do with the sticky add to cart. But on all the pages, so a lot of things were updated. And after that, I asked the client, I sent an email this morning. I said, hey, would you do me a favor? So we just did all this. I'm really interested in the results. I want to know the impact that had on your conversions. It's a relatively newer website, and so it doesn't have the huge traffic yet, but still, there's hopefully will be some kind of, something in their analytics that might say that, they have an uptick. I'm hoping. But you know what? If none of that did anything, guess what we learned? So we learned whether it was a good result, a bad result, or no result, whatever. But that also helps us continue to specialize and get better at what we do. We just did this thing. What can we learn from it? And the more we're exposed to those things and the more questions we ask, the better we become. So even though we're not CRO experts necessarily, we're going to get better at that part of it. I mean, obviously we do web design and development. We have a baseline understanding of all that, and maybe more than the average. But we're not billed as a CRO expert. We will pull those folks in or work with those folks, which brings me to my example. Let's get to that example. So this is an example that ties into this whole thing. This is the little story in the middle that ties everything together into a neat little bow. So I'm having a conversation the other day at a meeting with the person in charge at this agency, or my point of contact, whatever, and vice versa. I'm their point of contact. And we had a conversation about some tasks we're onboarding. So we were reviewing like literally hundreds of tasks. And they had sent me a spreadsheet, just like a rough spreadsheet of like literally almost 200 tasks. And they had in there like UWD, Unified Web Design, UWD column, like, what can you do? I don't know, there was two columns. Like one was just kind of like, are you interested in these? One was, can you do these, or something like that? Or which ones you want to do? One of those two, I don't remember. But anyway, so we were discussing that, and I had like basically checked like almost all of them. Probably 98% of them, right? We're like, yeah, we'll do that. Does that work out the numbers? Maybe 95%. But there was a few that I didn't mark, and part of the reason was they were vague, so really didn't know. I wasn't going to like lock us into something that I don't even fully understand it. But there was one in particular. There was a number that did reference CRO audits, but the implementation of them. What I had to be clear on, though, was we don't do the actual audits. Well, we'll leave that door open that someday maybe we do have a department that does that. Really, a department, the CRO audit department, or Unified Web Design. Maybe we'll have that. Right now, we work with CROs like outside, right? Those are external. We'll either get the CRO reports or suggestions, or we'll go find somebody. Like right now, there's a project where I actually talk to a couple CROs. I'll do it first. I'll find the expert, and then I'll introduce them to the client if Matt approves. And in this case, that was the case. So, I was clear. So I'm like, this is what we do, and this is what we don't do. Number one, I made that conversation very, very clear, very easy to understand, and it made her job. She's like, thank you. This is what I need to know. We'll figure that out, but it's good to know that you can implement that. So those are the situations when you know what you specialize in, and you know what you do and don't do, and you're clear on that, it's going to make those meetings a lot easier. You're going to be able to really build a better relationship, because they know that you have red lines or things that you like. They know where, what your wheelhouse is, and then we can figure out how we're going to help them. We can take this off. Like what we're doing for this agency is this is that backlog of stuff they have, and they don't want to be doing all that stuff, and they're behind, and they're it's not good. So we're coming in to solve that for them, that very specific thing, and then do other stuff. We're talking about a bunch of things, but that has always been like when I'm talking to new prospects, other agencies, like what do you do, don't do. I can very, very clearly articulate what it is we don't do. And the problem is that if you're just starting out, you might say yes to some of those things. It's very tempting. But at some point, at least, you need to start saying no. You need to really be clear on who you are as a person or company, what you want to do and what you're passionate about. It would be very easy for me. It's like, yeah, we can do a CRO audit. ChatGPT. If I was going to be a CRO audit, what would I need? How would I communicate that? And what do I need to do? How do I develop reports? What do I look for on a website am I going to do that on the fly? I could, but that takes me out of really what we've defined, right? I I think I mentioned that my first decade online, I was, doing, I was a search marketer. I was an expert in SEO. I had to be, right? Making money, my money. And I'm spending, in those days, I spent my money. I did a lot of advertising. Okay. Did a lot of advertising, spending my money, and I had to have a return on that investment. So I had to be an expert. I became really good at SEO. I became really good at analytics. I became really good at writing copy. I became really good at least good enough to make money, right? To actually have a positive return on many things. I became good at those things. And so today, as a web design agency, I run into those things, obviously. I could create a website, a broader website, say, well, even let's just take SEO, for example, on web, if I had web design, I could have an SEO tab, menu. I call it tabs, menu item. I talk to people that call menus like items tabs, and it confuses me because that's not a tab in my mind. Anyway, I digress. So, but I could, but I don't. And I don't because I want to, okay, I could make some money in whatever case it would come up. But that takes us out of our wheelhouse. There's another actually interesting reason I didn't want to go into digital marketing, even if it would I could create another site. Why not? Unifiedwebmarketing.com. Okay, I could do that, but one of the kind of my strategies is that I don't want to do that because I don't want to compete against the agencies that I'm partnering with. Like, if I want to work with digital marketing agencies or advertising agencies, SEO agencies, and I do SEO, I mean, it may not be a problem. Maybe we could figure that out. Maybe it wouldn't be a problem at all. But in my mind, it's like, well, I want to compliment those people. And also this is another reason, and this is another thing I look at it is, because I have that background knowledge, I can actually be better at web design development because I can translate, I can understand what the marketers are saying, the advertisers are saying, and what their needs are, and I understand the tools they use, so I can be more effective in what we do. There's, within that, there are going to be things that you pick up. I mean, we do pick up random web projects that we normally wouldn't do. Like, we don't do a lot of. Like, we built like a customer portal this past year using React. It was actually headless, though. It was still related to WordPress. It was a headless, meaning, man, you're getting technical again. Meaning, we used WordPress. We used WordPress's backend. Actually, they had a whole WordPress site going on. But then we built this independent tool or customer portal. Well, it was a quoting tool too. Built on React. So the front end was unhooked from WordPress, but we still use the backend data. So we're using a WordPress database. The front end was something else. We do those things. We broaden, and move. That's still kind of in our wheelhouse, though. We're going out a little bit, and we do WordPress. I never want to say that all we do is WordPress, because we do Shopify. We have worked in other CMS, and we even build Bootstrap landing pages. We have a client. That's all we do. We build sales pages and funnels, and using Bootstrap, which is just like like a CSS type of framework, and other frameworks we use to build static pages and things. So we do other things. Our core, though, is WordPress, and but I never want to lock that in. Like, I even though WordPress is a big part of the conversation, and and we naturally attract that because we do that. There are other things we do outside of that, but it's still web development, design, and it's still not, being a CRO and going in and creating those reports, or an SEO and going in and creating SEO reports. I technically have an in-house person that helps me with SEO on our websites and might even could go in and optimize a website for SEO, do on-page SEO for a client. And sometimes we'll just do that. But it's not our core services. Content's another thing. Like, we don't do content, but we will work with copywriters, or we'll get content done. But there's been a few instances where Matt's done content, or gotten help from ChatGPT these days to write a little content for a website. If the client, if that's okay with the client, obviously they're going to know. But we still, so it's challenging to focus because there's a lot of ways to make money out there, and there's a lot of things that'll come up, and there's conversations you'll have. And I have conversations with plenty of agencies and people where it's like there wasn't a good fit because this is all we do. These are the type of projects we work on. This is how we approach things. And maybe they're doing different things, bigger things, whatever. Maybe we don't do something today. Maybe down the road we do something. But, but you have to learn to say no. And that's really hard, right? Because you see the money and you have some experience with it. You could do it. But can you say no? Can you got to think. I think for me, it's like, I think about it. I say no to things, or I say we don't do things, and I've gotten kind of used to it over time, but I have a very specific vision. Like, I know what our wheelhouse is. We work with an agency where they have a very defined industry, like basically contractors, HVAC, and they have a very specific way they build websites. Now they're doing the whole thing. They're creating the content. They're doing the marketing. I think they do advertising, probably everything for these clients. So they get the website built, and then they do all the other services. But the way they build those websites is a very specific way, using a very specific in-house framework of creating WordPress sites. So they have a lane. But when they go outside that lane, I've built a relationship with them where I get the email and say, Matt, they want to do this thing. We don't do that. Can you help? And they'll typically, in that particular scenario, we're not white label. They will introduce me to that client. And then they might even be building the website and I'm just building a feature. And then we just coordinate. So it was just an outside vendor that they referred the client to. And, and that works out really, really well. But they know their wheelhouse. They know this is what they do, and they don't go outside of that. And they don't go outside of that because they don't want to get into the weeds. They're very efficient. It is a great model. Some days I wonder, sometimes well, it would be much easier if I had a lane in this type of lane. But we've positioned ourselves where our lane is, we do the custom work. We don't I've established this agency, and we do the maintenance. Obviously, the maintenance is just natural. That's like, we're building things and we're maintaining things, and that's a good way to also back end and create recurring revenue over time. So that has its place. But custom, somebody's not going to come to us with a template to just build a website with a template. It could happen, maybe here and there. I would say yes to that. But what we focus on, our messaging is, we do custom. And so that is our lane. Custom is actually our lane. It's not the most efficient for building websites, because it's custom, right? It takes more time and scoping and there's way more complexity depending on the size of the project. That's our lane. So we do the custom stuff. And that's how we've just that's our lane. But so that's why we complement an agency like that's in their lane. And then we are pairing up to be like another agency where they do the front end stuff and we do the back end stuff. That's our lane. And we run multiple lanes. We do the front end too in that regard. But yeah, so I think if you are, whether you have a business, you're selling products, even if you're selling products, like you could be, let's say you're, building WordPress, because I'm a WordPress guy, WordPress plugins, right? And you're going to create an SEO plugin. What is special about your SEO plugin? What sets you apart? What differentiates you, from all the big players out there, right? Do you have a very specific, I'm actually building a feature right now. I have a plugin called Unified Toolkit. I'm going to leave it at this. Unified Toolkit it's basically a starter kit to build, instead of having to install all these complex, heavy duty, bloated plugins. You can just use Unified Toolkit to get a quick start, right? And then as you need those things, you can upgrade and get those things. Well, one of the things that I wanted to have in there is a way to capture leads. Just one way right now, MailChimp. Have the ability to create MailChimp forms. But that can be there's a whole plugin that has like a massive amount of customizations and things you can do with that. So I had to sit down and make the short list. What are the essentials? And that's what we're going to build into this tool. We're not going to be a MailChimp plugin here. We're going to have, this is an option. We're going to have a form a simple WordPress form or for like contact forms. And then we're going to have MailChimp. We've checked that off the list. You could use this to just build out these things and start collecting names, your name capture. But I had to define what we were going to build based on what our lane is. What we've defined as, what does this product specialize in? It specializes in the basics. It's actually pretty cool. We do go a little bit beyond the basics here and there though, but from a security perspective, performance, features, all the things, just the basics. And then when you're ready, you do more. That's it. We're going to leave it at that. Hopefully this makes, hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully you got a lot out of this and you learned something today. But yeah, specialization is super important from the, macro to the micro levels. I think if you're starting a business and you want to be all things, all people, you're not going to, it's going to be hard. You're not going to be able to be the best. You're not going to be great at that thing. You can't be great at everything. It's kind of like a website. Let's use that as our last analogy today. Kind of like a website. One of the sayings, I had somebody tell me this years ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. I got to use that again. If everything on your, like talking about CTAs, what's the next action on your website? If everything's important, nothing's important. So if you're trying to be everything to everybody, like a web page, just try to I want you to take but I want people to take this action and this action and this action and this action. That's going to be a lot harder to convert than having one specific action or one focus with your business. All right. I'm going to let you go. Until next time, thanks for listening. Take care. That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you're interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.